The sun rose over Windsor Castle with a kind of dignified grace that befit a structure older than most nations. Light streamed across the worn cobblestones, painting long shadows over its time-worn walls. It was April 1st, and the tourists came early, their buses spilling out eager visitors with cameras slung around their necks and excitement crackling in the spring air. They weren't just here for the architecture or the history, they wanted to witness the changing of the guard. Among them was Kyle Preston, an Australian social media prankster known in his circles for his brash, boundary-pushing humor. 26, with sun-bleached hair and sunglasses that cost more than most people's rent, Kyle had made a name for himself back in Sydney through consequence-free comedy, a phrase he often used to describe his stunts. But this time, he'd gone international. He wasn't just filming any prank, had planned what he called the ultimate April Fool's video. Trailing behind him were his longtime friends, Marco and Sean, cameras reluctantly rolling. Their discomfort was evident, though unspoken. Kyle's reputation was built on escalation, fake fights in grocery stores, pretending to faint in front of paramedics, and even staging a wedding proposal inside a courtroom. But this was different. This involved someone in uniform, a real soldier. Stationed 20 yards ahead was Corporal Adam Fletcher. 8 years in the Royal Guard had molded him into the very image of stoic professionalism. Clad in the iconic red tunic, polished brass buttons, and a towering bearskin hat, he stood motionless, eyes fixed forward, posture unwavering. Behind his disciplined stillness lay real experience: combat tours, grueling field exercises, and endless hours of ceremonial perfection. Kyle, of course, didn't see any of that. All he saw was an immobile man in fancy dress. "It's like he's auditioning to be a wax figure," Kyle muttered with a smirk, making sure his voice carried just far enough for a few tourists to hear. A few nervous laughs trickled from the crowd. Nearby, a British couple exchanged disapproving glances while a schoolteacher gently ushered her students a few steps back. "Don't you think this is a little much?" Sean asked quietly, keeping the lens focused but hesitant. "These guys aren't actors. They're actual military." Kyle waved them off. "Come on. They're basically set dressing for the tourists. If they were real soldiers, they'd be out doing something real, not standing like statues for Instagram shots." Adam Fletcher's training kicked in as soon as he noticed Kyle moving closer. He didn't flinch. His peripheral vision stayed sharp, tracking every movement while his mind assessed the approaching disruption like a battlefield variable. The uniform was ceremonial, yes, but his vigilance never wavered. His duty wasn't just to stand, it was to uphold a legacy. Kyle launched into his routine with a mock-serious strut, marching up and down like a cartoon general. "Attention!" he barked in an over-the-top accent. Royal inspection commencing. A ripple of discomfort passed through the crowd. Some chuckled awkwardly. Others began backing away. One castle staff member approached and quietly warned, "Sir, these are active-duty military personnel. We ask all visitors to remain respectful." Kyle only smiled, brushing her off. Just a bit of April Fool's fun. No harm in it. His grin widened as she walked away, muttering killjoy under his breath. Emboldened, he got closer. Too close. He posed for selfies with exaggerated faces inches from Corporal Fletcher. He pretended to polish the buttons on his uniform, narrating his actions with feigned formality. "Can't have you looking scruffy for the tourists, mate. King's standards and all." Marco winced behind the camera. "Kyle, seriously, you're pushing it." Still, Kyle pressed on. "Relax, I'm not touching him. It's all performance." The crowd began thinning. What started as curiosity was now discomfort. Parents steered children away. A German couple walked off muttering under their breath. Only a few remained, unsure whether they were watching a prank or the start of something worse. And Kyle hadn't even gotten to the main act yet. "You guys ready?" he whispered to his friends. "Time to take this viral." From his backpack, he pulled out what looked like an expensive DSLR camera. Only Marco and Sean knew it wasn't real. It was a high-powered water gun, custom-built to look like camera gear. He'd paid over £200 for the prop, bragging that it would be the highlight of his international prank tour. "Here we go," he declared loudly, raising the fake lens. Royal portrait coming up. No, don't, a teacher from the school group began to say, stepping forward urgently. But Kyle was already in motion. 3, 2, 1. A sharp stream of water shot from the disguise device, hitting Corporal Fletcher squarely in the face. The water splashed across his cap and down his cheeks, soaking the red wool and darkening the fabric. Silence felt like a guillotine. Every camera lowered. Every mouth fell open. Even the children stopped fidgeting. Corporal Fletcher didn't move. For a moment, he simply stood face dripping, gaze locked forward. But something behind his eyes had shifted. Kyle chuckled nervously. It's just water. April Fool's, mate. The movement, when it came, was surgical. Fletcher stepped forward, grabbed Kyle's wrist with a swift, firm grip, and disarmed him of the fake camera in one seamless motion. No theatrics. No words. Kyle froze. The grin fell from his face like a mask. It's just a joke. Fletcher held the water gun in one hand, Kyle's wrist in the other. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Within seconds, Castle security moved in, having watched the incident unfold in real time. 2 officers flanked Kyle, their expressions unreadable. I didn't mean anything, Kyle stammered. It's just a prank, nothing serious. Fletcher finally spoke, his voice calm and authoritative. Assaulting a King's Guard is a criminal offense. It's just a toy, Kyle protested, pale and trembling. This is not a costume, Fletcher said evenly. These medals are not props. I have served 2 tours overseas. I've worn this uniform beside men who didn't make it home. The crowd was frozen, silent. The teacher nodded solemnly, placing a hand on a student's shoulder. I didn't know, Kyle muttered. Exactly, Fletcher said. You didn't know? Because you didn't ask. You assumed. And you disrespected centuries of sacrifice because you wanted a video. Security led Kyle away. His friends trailed behind, their cameras now pointed toward the ground. Kyle looked over his shoulder once before disappearing into the guard station. I'm sorry, he said, barely audible. Fletcher watched him go. Then, as if nothing had happened, he returned to his post. Back straight, chin high. Only the wet patches on his tunic betrayed what had taken place. The tourists who remained watched him with new eyes. They didn't laugh. They didn't pose for selfies. They simply looked some with shame, others with respect. And slowly, the courtyard began to breathe again. Later, people would recall that moment. Not because of the prank, but because of what came after. A moment when arrogance met reality. When a joke collided with history. And when one man, drenched in water but steady as ever, reminded everyone watching of the true meaning of service.